Since the very dawn of civilization, humanity has looked up at the vast, mysterious expanse of the night sky, deeply searching for patterns, meaning, and signs in the stars. Ancient texts are absolutely filled with celestial references, and, that tradition continues right into the modern day. Welcome to this study. Today, we're taking a completely objective, deep dive into the fascinating world of prophetic astronomy and biblical timelines. Specifically, we're going to look really closely at a recent, highly intricate analysis presented by the YouTube channel Hourly Watch. This channel has brought forward a remarkably detailed presentation claiming that specific upcoming astronomical events perfectly align with ancient scripture. Now, our goal today isn't to take sides, debunk, or endorse any of these viewpoints. Instead, we're here to neutrally and clearly unpack this information as a full summary of their claims. We really want to understand exactly how the source connects the dots between distant stars, historical timelines, and the profound words of biblical prophecy.
So, to map out our journey today, we're going to cover four main areas. First, signs in the heavens. Second, prophecy and the 2033 timeline. Third, extensive asteroid alignments. And finally, number 4, the channel's road ahead.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Signs in the Heavens, the 8/12 eclipse, and the cloud. The absolute core thesis of the source material centers entirely around a very specific astronomical event happening on August 12th. The channel refers to this as the diamond ring eclipse. That's that breathtaking moment when the moon obscures the sun just enough to create a brilliant singular flash of light right on the edge. But what makes this date so vital to their theory actually isn't just the eclipse itself, it's the presence and highly specific behavior of a particular star that they are tracking closely alongside it.
The focal point of the channel's entire theory is a star named Nefelle. The speaker turns to Strong's Greek Bible Concordance, specifically looking at entry 3507, and points out that the word Nefelle directly translates to cloud. They also note that it perfectly matches the Hebrew pronunciation. But according to the source, this isn't just any ordinary cloud. They believe it symbolically mirrors the exact cloud that the Israelites followed through that unforgiving wilderness during their legendary exodus from Egypt. Think about it. That biblical pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night was meant to guide and protect an entire nation. By tracking a star with this exact namesake, the channel essentially establishes a profound historical and emotional anchor for their celestial theory.
So, let's look at what actually happens during this August 12th eclipse, which, by the way, the channel beautifully compares to a dazzling wedding ring in the sky. During this event, the star Nefelle is positioned exactly behind the moon and the sun. The channel dives into the precise mechanics of their astronomical tracking software to reveal something they find truly fascinating. If you move exactly 1 hour backward in their astronomical model, the star completely disappears from view. Then, if you move exactly 1 hour forward, it reappears. To the speaker, this precise celestial choreography, a star representing a guiding cloud hiding and revealing itself in perfect tandem with a solar eclipse, is a profound sign placed exactly where ancient prophecy said it would be. It's almost like a cosmic vanishing act on a perfectly timed schedule.
This celestial mapping builds into a very specific biblical foundation. Taking a look at Isaiah 19:1, it reads, "The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud." To unpack this vivid imagery, the speaker notes something incredible in the night sky. Right next to the Nefelle star, which is our literal cloud, there happens to be another celestial body named Swift. Furthermore, both of these are positioned in the sky as if they are riding right atop the massive Lion constellation. The source claims this is a direct, literal fulfillment written right there in the heavens. A swift body, riding a lion, perfectly positioned on a Nefelle cloud.
The crucial point the channel continues to drive home is tying these star names to the concept of a promised divine return. They bring in Matthew 24:30, which explicitly talks about the sign of the Son of Man appearing in heaven and coming in the clouds of heaven. The speaker uses this text to argue that the physical sun and moon during an eclipse serve as a literal billboard in the cosmos. In their view, the eclipse acts as a massive, unavoidable spotlight, drawing human eyes upward precisely at the moment the cloud star aligns, signaling this ancient monumental prophecy.
Building on that rich, dramatic imagery, the source introduces Nahum 1:13. This verse mentions that the Lord has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm. And here, the channel highlights an astronomical correlation that they find highly significant, pointing out the sheer rarity of this occurrence. An asteroid, literally named Storm, is positioned directly next to the Nephilim cloud star in the sky during this exact same eclipse timeframe. For the channel, finding this specific name in this specific place is an incredible statistical rarity, serving as yet another undeniable layer of confirmation for their viewers.
To make sure the viewer fully understands the historical precedent of this cloud imagery, the channel builds a firm foundation of scriptures. Referencing Acts 1:9, they highlight how Jesus was initially taken up and, quote, a cloud received him out of their sight. They remind their audience of the biblical promise that he would return in the exact same poetic, symmetric manner in which he left. To the source, tracking a star whose name means cloud isn't just a random choice. It's the most logical, mathematically sound way to watch the skies for this promised return, matching the departure directly with the arrival.
Adding yet another fascinating layer to this complex celestial mapping, the source cites Revelation 14:14, noting the specific mention of a sharp sickle. According to the speaker's observations of the night sky, this August 12th eclipse physically takes place right within the sickle constellation. For astronomical context, they explain that this is actually the lion's head, with the bright star Regulus acting as the literal handle of the sickle. It really is a highly detailed mapping of scripture directly onto the constellations, attempting to bring the ancient text to life through predictable orbital pathways.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, Prophecy and the 2033 Timeline, Ottoman Math and Biblical Weeks. Let's transition our study from the orbital astronomy up in the sky down to some historical mathematics right here on the ground. For a moment, the source actually moves away from the stars to calculate a highly specific year based on ancient construction records and biblical timeframes.
To anchor this detailed historical timeline calculation, the channel brings in Daniel 9:25. This is a very famous verse that talks about a specific commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. It mentions a timeline of 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Now, in biblical prophecy, this traditionally translates to 69 prophetic weeks. But here is the key. A prophetic week isn't 7 days. It's generally understood in these types of studies as a week of years, meaning 7 years per week. The source uses this exact mathematical formula, multiplying these prophetic weeks into years to begin counting forward from a specific, verifiable point in human history.
So, let's walk step by step through the math exactly as it's presented by the source. They point to historical records showing that the rebuilding of the ancient stone walls of Jerusalem was officially completed in 1543 by the great Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. This architectural feat provides them with a hard historical anchor. Starting from 1543, they add the calculated prophetic weeks of years from the book of Daniel, which brings their timeline forward precisely to the year 2026. Finally, they add a standard final 7-year tribulation period to that date. This calculation lands them perfectly on the year 2033. According to the channel's interpretation, this 2033 date represents the ultimate setup of the kingdom on Earth.
That brings us to Section 3, Extensive Asteroid Alignments, Celestial Confirmations. Moving forward in our study, we shift our gaze back to the skies. The source channel presents a massive, incredibly detailed list of asteroid alignments. They claim that the precise naming and positioning of these space rocks act as definitive confirmation signs for both their overarching timeline and their eclipse theory.
The speaker groups specific asteroids named after biblical figures together to create what looks like an epic heavenly reenactment. They point out the asteroid Daniel, located near the woman's head constellation, and Solomon, positioned right under the lion. They draw special attention to an asteroid named Casper, which is traditionally known as one of the wise men. In their astronomical model, the Casper asteroid is literally traveling east to an asteroid named Israel. They even spot an asteroid named Cyrene nearby, linking it to Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross. To the channel, this absolutely isn't just a random list of names. It's a profound mini-story playing out in real time across the cosmos.
Looking deeper at the symbolic naming of these celestial bodies, the source highlights an asteroid called Rel, pointing out that its meaning directly translates to a trumpet. They note its immediate proximity to Venus in the night sky. By interpreting this specific alignment, the speaker views it as a literal sign of heavenly trumpets or horns preparing to be blown, which echoes the intense warnings found throughout biblical prophecy.
Beyond just biblical figures, the channel identifies a fascinating cluster of what they call concept and action asteroids. So beyond the trumpet of Phrel, they track an asteroid named Bonus, which they interpret as the heavenly rewards for hard spiritual labor. Right beneath that is an asteroid named Booth. The speaker takes time to connect this to the ancient wilderness tent, or the tabernacle, representing a temporary dwelling place. They also point out asteroids like Tooting, Strong, and Bomb. They read this entirely unique cluster of names as a loud, powerful, and massive sign echoing through the heavens for all to see.
And these alignments even map onto modern concepts in the sky. The speaker notes the asteroid NASA positioned near the eclipse, and right above it, an asteroid named after Isaac Newton, the famous scientist who, fun fact, was also a deeply dedicated theologian. They also track an asteroid called Loveday, positioned directly between Jupiter and Mercury. The channel makes a highly specific connection here to the book of Acts, chapter 14, verse 12. In that story, the apostles Barnabas and Paul were enthusiastically called Jupiter and Mercury by the local crowds. By pointing this out, the source links this modern-named asteroid directly back to an ancient biblical event.
Concluding this extensive astronomical mapping, the channel highlights an asteroid named Neaster. They point out that in Hebrew, this word literally translates to a biblical miracle. For the speaker, having an asteroid that means miracle hovering right at the pinnacle of this massive, complex web of biblical names, historical timelines, and eclipse paths is a profound climax. They view it as a statistical unlikelihood and the ultimate confirmation that these celestial alignments are deeply deliberate and highly meaningful. Finally, Section 4, The Road Ahead, Ministry and Mission. We're going to shift our focus from the prophetic, celestial claims and ancient math to the practical, everyday reality of the channel's host. It really is a striking reminder of the very human element operating behind these extensive heavenly interpretations.
The host shares a very candid, real-world update with their community. They report that their primary mode of transportation and housing, which is a bus, recently broke down in a Walmart parking lot. They suspect it's an expensive fuel pump issue that requires completely removing the heavy gas tank to repair. And on top of these serious mechanical issues, they are facing $2,000 in DMV back pay for overdue registration tags. Furthermore, they are currently in need of basic living supplies like tents and backpacks just to safely continue their roadside mission.
To encourage their community during this significant setback, the host shares a quote, "Blessed are those who give meat in due season when he comes." Having produced these incredibly intricate study materials for over 10 years, the host expresses a deep, enduring desire to finish their race strong and get back on the road as soon as possible. They are relying heavily on their faith and the generosity of their community to help overcome these daunting mechanical and financial hurdles. As we wrap up this full summary of the material, we want to note that the source channel is Hourly Watch, and a link is below in the description box if you wish to review their full presentation for yourself. The host notes that prayers for the Watchmen channels are very much appreciated, and also they have a GoFundMe appeal set up for those who feel led to assist with their bus repairs, registration fees, and much-needed supplies. As we step back and look at the sheer scale of the intricate connections this channel weaves together, from a single star named Cloud disappearing in a solar eclipse, all the way back to the ancient Ottoman stone walls built by Sultan Suleiman, and right down to the modern struggles of a broken-down bus in a Walmart parking lot, it leaves us with a genuinely compelling thought. As these incredibly detailed historical calculations and celestial alignments continue to captivate prophecy watchers around the entire world, what completely new, undiscovered patterns might they find next in the endless starry expanse of the night sky? Keep looking up and keep learning.